So this is a video to show one of the very first projects we did on the property. I'm afraid it's recorded with quite a low quality camera because it's all we had at the time. We didn't have very many tools either, but what we wanted to do was do a project to get stuck into improving the property, and so what we had was windows on the garage that had paint that was flaking off with the wood exposed underneath, and in between the kind of old style glazing of the windows there was a lot of moisture traps that was turning to mould, and the surrounds of the windows themselves also had some problems, and we wanted to kind of repaint those before the winter because we didn't want the wood to get damaged by moisture and similar, and become rotten to the point that it had to be removed. So you can see on the video the two frames kind of fold apart, and in fact the whole kind of window slides off the hinges that hold it in place, so that you can air them out in summer, as it were. What the video shows is basically taking those windows off, which is actually pretty difficult because it needs two of you. They're really heavy windows, and and the height of the windows when you're outside is just enough that you need to be stood on a step ladder. So here we're scraping out all the old putty that holds in the glass panes. So this has become really brittle, and some of it had fallen out, and other bits of it had turned to like a kind of chalky material. And what this meant was some of the panes were just rattling around, and there was no air sealing around them. So what I did was to scrape out all this putty, and then from the paint shop we've been able to get new putty and put it in. So what we're trying to do is really push it in so that it has a good grip against the pane of glass and also against the wooden frame. Once this is done, we're going to use a primer on the frame, which isn't shown, and then we're going to use an exterior paint to try and stop moisture from getting to the wood too much, try and protect it as much as possible. So in terms of things that went wrong on this project, it went pretty okay. I mean, the main mistake I made was that halfway through I ran out of linseed putty because I didn't have any experience of how much I would need, um, and so I went back to the shop and I ended up picking up a tub of a different colour putty. So some windows had white putty and some had a brown putty, and it wasn't a big deal in the end because we painted over it, um, but uh, it was just kind of a funny mistake. Um, the other thing that wasn't so great was that we were pretty stressed out because of all the different pressures you have after you've first emigrated to another country. So there were lots of things we weren't sure about. There was the language barrier as well, and plus COVID, and we didn't fully know what was going to happen with our employers because COVID was having such a big effect on all the companies, and both that we work for and that our companies work for in turn. All in all, it came out pretty okay. So this photo shows the frames in the sun drying out, and we were pretty well behaved. We let them dry out for a good period because we knew that if you put them back in too early, and if that paint was at all still um, damp in any way, then the frames would stick to the surrounds in the garage, and we'd never get them open again. So we let them really dry out in the sun. And that was great. You can see it's really good weather during the summertime. We had a few problems with insects dying on the paint, but overall it came out pretty well. I think if money had been no object, then maybe we would have replaced them with modern windows before the winter. Perhaps like a double or even a triple glazed unit, but that would have been quite a lot of money at the time, and we were being pretty cautious with money during this period because we'd only just emigrated, and what with the COVID situation, for example, and the various economies struggling, we just wanted to be a bit careful. So here you can see the garage window frames have been painted. It's a bit of a low quality image just because of the mobile phone that was in use. So here's the refresh of the garage before, and you can see it's got these black window frames and the paint's peeling off the windows that are within the frames. And then afterwards there's a bit of masking tape still around there, and the sun's in the camera, but you can see at least one window is back inside the frame, and all the other windows on the property are also white frames. So this looks a lot more consistent, and we got it done before winter, which was something I was really happy about. So it's only a short video, but I hope you liked it, and this is the first video with a voiceover. So there we go.